Hello, everybody. Now, this week has been a terrible week in the United Kingdom and in Parliament in particular, because on Monday, MPs voted for abortion to birth, and on Friday, MPs voted for euthanasia. And the vote on this bill, which is called the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill, passed in the House of Commons by 313 to 291. That's a majority of 22 MPs, a small majority of MPs. It's fewer than in the first vote in November, which went through with a majority of 55. The majority's down from 55 to 22, but nevertheless, it passed and it now proceeds to the House of Lords. Now, I normally say this at the end of my videos, but I'm going to say this at the beginning now, so as many of you as possible hear it. Please join me in the Heritage Party to stop this culture of death that we have got coming to the United Kingdom through Parliament, through the MPs. You write to your MPs. I've written to my MP, who is Labour. There's not much, hope I have in them actually doing the right thing, but I do. Many of you do faithfully, and you have done, and you have changed the minds of some MPs, but not enough. I applaud everybody for doing that and taking action to lobby and campaign to your MPs. But we need more. We need to get rid of these MPs. And we need to get rid of these parties who even a little bit entertain abortion to birth and euthanasia. And that includes the entire Uniparty and Reform, which are really essentially a Uniparty pressure valve. They're really part of the operation. And if you look at the breakdown of the MPs that voted for this bill, so you have here 313, lots of Labour, lots of Lib Dems, 20 Conservatives and 2 Reform. Against some, surprisingly, large number of Labour, some Lib Dems. The majority of the Conservatives, 92, voted against it. Okay, good for them. 20 for it, though. Reform, 3 against it out of their 5 MPs and 2 for it. So 18% of Tory fake Conservative MPs voted for euthanasia, for killing on the NHS, killing patients, trashing the Hippocratic Oath. And 40% of Reform MPs voted for that euthanasia bill as well. And the 2 that voted for euthanasia were Richard Tice and Sarah Potchin, their new MP who won the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby last month. So you need to join the Heritage Party. I say that unashamedly. We are the only UK-wide, nationwide pro-life party. Yes, there are a couple of pro-life parties in Northern Ireland, great, but we're the only pro-life party that is standing candidates in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, in all parts of the United Kingdom. We need to get rid of all of these parties who will, to some extent or another, bring in the progressive agenda which the globalists want, whether it's gender ideology, changing marriage to include gay marriage, and then polyamory, and then whatever comes next, marrying an object, marrying an animal, I don't know, polygamy, legalizing that as well. All of these things, including abortion, liberalizing abortion. We've already had in the last 10 years, in addition to the Abortion Act, buffer zones so that you get arrested for praying or offering to talk to mothers outside an abortion center where babies are killed. Euthanasia, obviously, that we've seen as well, voted in the House of Commons, voted through the House of Commons in the UK for England and Wales. And obviously the transgender agenda as well. When you still have tens of thousands of transgender activists, LGBT activists, going into schools to undermine traditional family values and biological sex and confuse children as to their gender in schools and so on. It's all part of the same agenda. And it doesn't matter whether it's Labour, Lib Dem, Tory, Green, Reform, they will all, to some extent or another, support those agendas. You don't know where you stand with them. With the Heritage Party, you do know where you stand. All of my candidates make an undertaking, a specific undertaking, because I bring this up in the interview for every single candidate. And I don't let people stand for Westminster if they don't agree that we're pro-life, that they will vote against abortion, against euthanasia, against transgenderism, against the redefinition of marriage and restoring marriage to being a man and a woman. So you know exactly where you stand with the Heritage Party. We're the only party that has these things at the center and the core of what we stand for, which is social conservatism, based essentially on Christian principles. Not specifically Christian party, but Christian principles are what we need to get back to in our nation. And, you know, devout people from other faiths actually like that. You know, they join us. I have people from other faiths as well as Christians in the party, and they like it. And they like that we stand for those principles, those family values, those traditional socially conservative principles. So I'm saying this at the beginning because it's not enough to write to your MPs. It's good, it's honourable to do that. But we need to get into Parliament to boot out all of these parties that will compromise on these issues. And if you keep voting for those parties, you're going to get a number of MPs who are going to be pro-death, who are going to continue to bring in the culture of death, abortion, euthanasia, gender mutilation, and all these other things. We've got to stop that. And we've got to stop that at the next election, which will be at the most 4 years away. I don't know how we're going to survive another 4 years of Labour. You can see this has just happened in the first year, but we need to get into a place where we can win seats and win a majority of seats in Parliament. And you might say, well, how are you going to do that? I can only do that with you. I can only do that with you if you support me, you support the Heritage Party and the people who are already involved. Wonderful, wonderful people who are putting their heads above the parapet to stand for Parliament. We had 40 people stand for Parliament in the last general election, 41 actually, sorry, in 2024. And we need more people. As I always say, we need money, members and manpower. Then we need all of those three things to be able to get into a position where we can turn back this culture of death and replace it with what we always did have in this country, which was a culture of life. And that's what you have when you base your politics on Christian principles. We need to reject completely and overturn Alistair Campbell's mantra, we don't do God. Well, we do God. We do Christian principles. We want to restore a culture of life to our nation and overturn these dreadful things that have happened in the House of Commons this week. Now, that being said, let's look at where we are in Parliament, because both of these bills, the crime and policing bill to which this abortion to birth amendment was attached, and the the terminally ill adults end of life bill, which is not just about terminally ill adults. It includes a whole number of other people that will find themselves being offered death on an increasing level, just like you've seen in the Netherlands and in Belgium and in Canada and in Oregon. Wherever this is brought in, it's brought in on the basis of false compassion. Saying, if you don't agree with this, you're a bad person, because there are a small number of people who are suffering and they need to be killed to put them out of their suffering. I don't agree with that. I do understand people's compassion, but I don't agree with that. But then it moves immediately from being a handful to people who aren't suffering, to people who are, just you have an illness. People then who don't have an illness, or maybe they've got a mental illness, they're depressed or they're anxious, or even then they haven't got a job or they're unemployed. They're offered death. rather than counselling or therapy or palliative care, which is what we need to really support in its stead. So these bills then are now going to the House of Lords. What will the House of Lords do? Well, they can overturn them. They can reject them. With the crime and policing bill, with the abortion to birth amendment, the Lords are not likely to reject that. Sad to say, they're likely to just wave it through. I hope there will be some discussion and maybe they can take out this amendment. They might put their own amendment in to take out the abortion to birth amendment. I hope they do that. I don't know. With the euthanasia bill, it's far, far more likely that the Lords may completely overturn it and vote against it, in which case it will then return to the House of Commons and they play ping pong with it and so on. But at least they can slow it down. And then if we get to the end of this year's parliamentary session, which ends with the proroguing of Parliament and the new Queen's or King's speech, which is likely to happen in November, then everything that is not finished its passage completely through Parliament and being given royal assent will fall. So hopefully the Lords may vote against this euthanasia bill or slow it down to such an extent that it runs out of time before the next King's speech. So they're much more likely to do that. And because the vote was very narrow, only got through the Commons by 22 votes, they may stop it. So we hope that. And I know already we and other pro-life organizations are looking at and actively going to the Lords to say, please look at this. This is a very, very bad bill. It's not just going to, end suffering, which is what we're being told that it will do. It is supposedly anyone who is deemed by a doctor to have 6 months or less to live will be offered assisted killing, assisted dying, suicide, whatever. But this is, in a way, complete nonsense, because how does a doctor or a nurse or a medical practitioner know when someone is going to die? For some people, yes, you can tell they're going to die maybe in a day or two. But for someone who's 4 months or 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, how do you know that they're going to die within 6 months? They don't. It's all guesswork. It's all done on estimation. And many people who are told you're going to die within 6 months, the end of your life is coming, actually live on for another 2 or 3 years. So this idea that you can know when someone is going to die is a complete fallacy. So the whole thing is based on a total fallacy. And then it's not just for people who are suffering and in pain. It's going to be offered to a lot more people than that. People with anorexia, for example, people with ME, people with depression, as I said, people with anxiety, mental health conditions that are not diagnosed, because most mental health conditions are not objectively diagnosed. Yes, you can diagnose epilepsy and schizophrenia, for example, but you wouldn't be offered, your life to be ended because of those things. Or maybe you will under this bill. But they're talking about things like depression, as I said. Killing someone because they're depressed, rather than trying to come alongside someone, help them, counsel them, pray for them, give them therapy, give them love to help them and to get back to a better place. The idea is, no, we're just going to kill them. They're surplus, useless eaters. Let's just kill them. This is what the globalist cabal thinks, and this is what has come in to our country through Kem Leadbeater and her bill, supported by Labour, Lib Dem, Green, Tory, and Reform MPs. And it needs to be overturned. So we'll be turning our attention to the Lords, along with our allies in pro-life groups, to try to make them to see that this is not the right thing for the country and to overturn this bill in the Lords. It can be done. But if it isn't, and even if it isn't, we need MPs, Heritage Party MPs, a majority of us, so that things like this don't even come to the table. And we need to stop the culture of death from progressing in its tracks, reverse it, pin it to the wall and keep it there and rebuild the culture of life. So I said this at the beginning, I'll say this at the end, because this is urgent now. If not now, when? Please come and join me in the Heritage Party. It's only £25 a year to join as a member. You can then join a local branch. We'll put you in touch with local people. You can try to either become a candidate yourself or support our local candidates, go and campaign for them, and restore our nation to what it should be. If you're concerned about these things in any way, and you've written to your MPs very nobly, please take the next step and get involved, not just in campaigning and lobbying, but in politics. Get involved in politics, in party politics, to boot out all of these parties which support a culture of death and to restore a culture of life. Thank you for listening, everyone. God bless you all.